You know me as Maureen, but my nickname is Art Nomad. I call myself that because I've spent years exploring different ways of artistic expression, and I'm going to talk to you tonight about my best project, the Thankful Generations Project. But first, my journey. My artistic journey started at the tender age of 14 when I had my first job, my first paycheck, and I bought my first camera. And I took that craft as far as I could on a 14-year-old's budget. I also explored drawing, painting, quilting, and it wasn't until I tried beading where I found my true passion. My first real project was taking a handful of colorful glass beads and transforming this party dress for my daughter's 5th birthday into something that was really festive, and I was hooked. That Christmas, I decided I was going to make Christmas ornaments for my family members. And alas, my first attempt went horribly, horribly wrong. I ended up making a candle sock instead of a drape for ornaments, but that didn't stop me. I moved on. I entered a phase that I like to call my beading binge. I bought hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of beads. And I even had my friend Clint build me a beading workstation so I could store my beads and have a place to work. I had a phase where I made hundreds and hundreds of necklaces. I even took workshops to learn how to make beads out of precious metal clay and fused glass. I just was crazy about beading. I also discovered a method called the brick stitch. And imagine a bricklayer, one brick at a time. That's what brick stitch is with beads, one bead at a time. And I had a phase where I was making pictorials out of brick stitch. But you can imagine that was tedious, and it took a long time to make even a small project. A game changer for me was when I discovered precision cut delica beads. And I used those to make another series of amulet purses, of which I made 50 or 60. And you can see how nicely that amulet purse is squared off because of those beads. This experience emboldened me to make bigger and better projects. And so you can see here a bracelet that I made for my younger daughter, Sarah. She loves paisley. And as I finished that project, I brought it to my husband and said, "Look, honey, I'm so proud." So I set about making a series of Southwestern themed tapestries, like the Man in the Maze, the Kokopelli. And this is when I discovered the next game changer for me, which was beading on a loom. Imagine, instead of brick stitch, where I'm doing one bead at a time, I can actually pick up maybe 150 beads for one strand. It became maybe not more simplified, but it allowed me to be much more efficient in creating bigger and more colorful projects than I ever imagined before. As I approached my 50th birthday, I had perfected my process with the looms, with my beads, and I had really become an expert, and I decided to combine my interest in beads with a deep-held interest in the military, and in particular World War II. What? World War II? Where's that coming from? You have to know a little bit about my family history. My mother grew up on the tiny island of Okinawa. And if you know your World War II history, you'll appreciate the significance of how that island was in the crosshairs of the final throes of World War II. And it deeply affected my mother's family, and so me as a result. I set about looking for the perfect picture to do my first beaded tapestry, and I discovered it watching the PBS special, The War, in which this Marine in Saipan was one of the feature photographs. And I was hooked from there. People heard about my project, family and friends, and pictures just started appearing. This of my uncle, Arthur, who served in the European theater, was severely wounded, evacuated on the back of a tank, and I created this tapestry in his honor. My friend Rod in San Diego, his father served in the Navy in the Pacific Theater, And he was deeply influenced by his father's experiences, so much that he also joined the Navy and now owns a nautical antique store in San Diego. But let's not forget about the women of the war. My friend Bruce sent me the badge photograph of his mother, who served as a welder working on destroyers during World War II. And my own mother-in-law, Doris, was a WAVE, a volunteer. With all that said, my final tapestry of this series is of my own grandfather, Chester Aloysius Kenny. And as I completed that project and rounded out the dozen tapestries that I had initially set out to complete, I had to ask myself, what's the significance of this project? Well, for me, with every bead that I picked up, it was my way of saying thank you to a generation that experienced sacrifice at a magnitude that we probably cannot even comprehend. And so I'm hoping as my next art nomadic journey continues, I'll be able to do a similar project of significance. Thank you.